You are listening to Fantha tracks.
He's waiting.
Classic Star Wars and the collectibles they gave us. From vintage Star Wars to the modern era of the saga. This is Collecting Tracks. Here are your hosts, Richard Hutchinson and Chris Leddy.
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Collecting Tracks. I'm Richard Hutchinson.
And I'm Chris Leddy.
And we're your hosts for episode 7, Indy Does the Wars. Well, Chris, it wasn't too long ago that we did our last show, so it does seem as though we're back on track. What have you been up to in the last month or so?
Yeah, it's been good to kind of get back aligned with our schedules here. Things going on over in the States here, just enjoying the New England summer. Yeah, it's a bit rainy today, but we need it. Just, I don't know, planning vacations, going camping up in the White Mountains with the family soon. So that'll be nice. Looking forward to that. Just kind of collection-wise, I've talked about it before. I've been continuing to pare down, figure out what is truly meaningful to me. And surprisingly, it feels pretty good to let a lot of stuff go. Stuff that's like on the fringes of the personal collection stuff. So that's good. And then most people that know me, I'm a big fan of Ahsoka, so I'm getting really excited for her show, especially after this latest trailer that dropped. Lots of little nuggets in there, things to pick up on. So, I mean, that's kind of what's going on with me. What's going on with you?
Well, we've had some really, really bad weather over here. So, I don't know, maybe about a month ago, possibly a bit less, we had some quite warm weather. Certainly warm for the UK standards. I'm sure you would have been in your coat and cap and everything. But the last, I don't know, week and a half, 2 weeks, it has rained virtually non-stop. Thunderstorms, you name it. We've had the lot. Yeah. So it's been really wet and miserable, which is a real shame. But we're racing towards the end of term. So I'm a school teacher, as you know. So I've got 1 week, 5 days and counting until we break up our summer term, which is brilliant. But then literally the next day after I break up, I'm off to Thailand via Dubai. So my wife and I are heading out for 3 weeks. It is also the rain season in Thailand as well. But from everything I can get it's a case of it's lovely and hot, and then the heavens open for about an hour and a half in the afternoon. So you just go and get your lunch, come back out a couple of hours later, and you don't even know it's been raining. So really looking forward to that. I'm glad you put the Ahsoka trailer in the show notes, actually, because it reminded us that the trailer had dropped, so I checked that out. You're right, there are some really, really good nods to it. You know, certainly some hate the Empire nods in there, some, right in your face. So I'm actually looking forward to seeing that show. I'm looking forward to seeing how these characters are going to get back together, because there does seem to be a bit of resentment and hostility in there, which is something different. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, just give us something, continuation of the storylines for these characters from the Rebels series. And, some of these characters we're going to see for the first time in live action. How is that going to translate? So just a lot of questions. I think the visuals look really good, as they normally do with these productions. It's just, where does the story go? And, I'm kind of in the Filoni we trust camp. So I'm, fingers crossed a lot of the parts of the story that were created in that series in Rebels, really carry on into the Ahsoka series.
Well, I'm absolutely in the Filoni we trust camp as well, but I'm much more of a Filoni. Sometimes some of these characters don't need to come back, or it's time to kill some of these characters off now. So I do like to see some good endings of these characters, and it doesn't have to all be unicorns and candy floss.
100% agree.
I don't even know what that means.
Yeah,
I don't know where that comes from.
It works.
So then, Chris, we decided to have a look at Indiana Jones and some kind of Star Wars crossover, because we're not an Indiana Jones podcast by any means, but there were huge crossovers between Star Wars and Indiana Jones. So Dial of Destiny, have you had a chance to check it out yet with no spoilers?
No spoilers. Yeah. Yes. The wife and I went and saw it the other weekend, and it's tough to avoid spoilers and other people's reactions online these days, but I didn't really have a ton of preconceived notions. I just wanted to go in and take it as it is, but I did have a little bit of negative connotation, stuck in my brain as I watched it. And both of us were pleasantly surprised. It was just a fun adventure, definitely very much Indiana Jones in the way, things happen. I don't know. I thought it was good. There was, again, more like Easter eggs and nods to different things and cameos and that sort of thing. But for me, it was just a fun adventure. And I wasn't really looking for much more than that, honestly. Did you get a chance to see it?
Well, my wife will not go to the cinema, and the kids have all grown up. So I don't know when it is I'm going to be able, because it kind of feels a bit sad to go to the cinema by yourself. And when the next Star Wars movies come out, I'm going to have to think about how to do that. But no, I've not seen Dial of Destiny. And to be honest with you, I was never a big Indy fan, which goes into our next question of childhood memories.
Yeah.
I must have watched Raiders Christmas time, and I just kind of wasn't really interested in it, and I didn't really like Temple of Doom either. So my first real memories of the Indiana Jones franchise was as a group of, I don't know, 14-year-olds possibly, going over to the cinema, maybe about 8 dozen of us, and the vote was to watch Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade, and I was devastated because I thought, I don't like the first 2 Indiana Jones. Why are we going to watch this? But as it happens, I loved it. I really, really enjoyed it, and I still to this day think Last Crusade is by far the best indie film. And then obviously when Crystal Skull came out, I think like everybody else, I was disappointed, and I'm glad they didn't take, the direction any further than what they did. It was an experiment that didn't work. But I've watched Raiders and I've watched Temple of Doom multiple times over the last few years, maybe 5-7 years, and I just can't get into them. They're just not my kind of movies. But there's something in Last Crusade that I really enjoy, and I think it's possibly the whole Knights Templar kind of connection. I really enjoy the history of that, and it probably coincide with the Dan Brown works and everything else that's been coming out, over the last decade or so.
Sure.
So, yeah. What about you, Chris? Were you a big Raiders fan, like it seems everybody in the States was?
Well, I mean, Raiders came out when I was 1 year old. So, but I mean, honestly, my first memory really is directed towards Raiders. And back in the 80s when VHS came out, that was like a big thing. And my parents bought their first VHS player, and the first movie that we rented was Raiders of the Lost Ark. And I just vividly remember my dad coming home with that VHS player and having the Indy or Raiders of the Lost Ark VHS tape, but I don't really remember like watching the movie. Honestly, it wasn't until later on that I do remember seeing it. But that was just like a pivotal, kind of signature moment in my childhood, is just remembering seeing that and then making the connection like, oh, that guy's the same actor that was Han Solo in Star Wars. And then realizing like, oh, these are, like actors are in different things and stuff. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of the biggest memory for me. But I'm with you. Last Crusade, I saw it at the preteen kind of age, and I really enjoyed it. And like you, it's my favorite out of the series, including the newest one. So yeah, just a classic.
Now, what I thought we'd do in this show is have a look at lots of crossovers between Indy and Star Wars. And we're certainly going to mention the toys in that. Now, I'm going to be honest, Chris, I wasn't even really aware that there were Indiana Jones vintage toys. I think I started to become aware more so when I saw the retro line appearing. I don't know about you. Certainly, have you been picking up anything when you've been doing the toy shows over in the States? Do they appear? I've got no idea.
Just going back to like my awareness of them, I honestly don't remember Indiana Jones toys from my childhood, whether or not I came across them at the stores or in other friends' collections and stuff like that. It didn't really stick out to me. It wasn't until the mid 90s when I was old enough to like start buying collections and getting pieces here and there and these books and stuff. And I started realizing that there was, Indiana Jones toys back in the day. But for me, I mean, I do enjoy the series and everything, but I think it's that I don't have that nostalgic click or connection with the toy line for me to feel like I need them to collect them. And especially now with the values and everything, it's hard for me to justify breaking off and starting that collection. It would be a different story if I came across, a childhood collection and basically jump started a Focus or something. Yeah, I mean, I haven't really been picking up stuff. They do show up at the shows that I do. Usually they sell pretty quickly if they're priced right. More so the loose stuff. It's very rare to see boxed or carded items. In some of the shops around my area, they'll have some, but usually that stuff's pretty high priced.
Hi, this is John Morton from The Empire Strikes Back, and you're listening to Fantha Tracks.
I think that's my kind of thinking behind the Knickerbocker Lord of the Rings items, because, I love the Lord of the Rings. I'm a huge Tolkien fan. And when I started to become aware of the Knickerbocker items, I think I got a Gollum and a Sam. But then I started to think, I haven't really got a connection with these at all. So I ended up letting those go, but it's the same kind of principle for me. I mean, if I could pick up a nice carded set for relatively cheap, which is never going to happen, I probably would do.
Yeah.
But not now.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, it's cool. Like, we enjoy these series and these franchises and stuff like that. I'm kind of at a point where I feel like I don't need to force representation into my collection just to have something there. I can be a fan of these franchises and not really have any pieces, on my shelves or anything like that. But, to each their own, really.
Are you saying that as your wife's listening?
Yes. Yeah, she's sneaking in, making notes on what she can tell me later.
All right then, so let's move on to the show then, Chris. So I think we'll start off with something really, really easy at first. And we'll cover the actors who've appeared in both Star Wars and Indiana Jones. Do you want to take this one first, Chris? I guess you're going to start off with the most obvious one.
I mean, the most obvious one is General Veers, in my opinion. Julian Glover, he plays General Veers, obviously, in Empire Strikes Back, but then he's also in The Last Crusade as Walter Donovan. And definitely he's just an iconic actor these days, starring in stuff like Game of Thrones and so I think he's just like plays both roles perfectly, especially Last Crusade. And, I think it's cool to see these actors, kind of cross over between the two franchises.
Well, I think I'm going to go with somebody that's even more obvious. Obviously, Harrison Ford.
That was a given, obviously. But I'll let you have it.
What you've got to think about with I think Harrison Ford here is you really see how good an actor he is when he does two iconic characters and they are completely different. I mean, yeah, you could argue that they've both got the swagger and, like the confidence, but, Indiana Jones is a flawed character. And Harrison plays that really, really well. And to be honest with you, I couldn't think of another actor who could step into that role. And I think, the casting of Harrison on that was absolutely perfect. So, that by far is the success for me of Indiana Jones is Harrison Ford.
Yeah, 100%. He really, he's one of the greatest actors this lifetime. And he is, even though he's got that, he's just got such a distinctive look to him. He has this ability to really create and embody a character and take you, out of the the mindset of, oh, that's Harrison Ford playing this actor, this character. And you think back in the day when he was cast as Han Solo, George Lucas didn't really want to cast somebody that was in one of his previous movies, but Harrison Ford really pushed, during the auditioning process to really get that role, and it was justly due. And for then Harrison to get the role for Indiana Jones, it makes a ton of sense. He was already an established actor and had that presence to bring on, bring that character to life. And yeah, I mean, obviously the biggest connection between the two, but still, it's just it's great for him to have been in both franchises.
Absolutely. Go for the next one.
Yeah, the next one, I mean, there's it's kind of crazy. I'm kind of going down the list of a lot of the actors that were in both the movie franchises, but it's really interesting to see who was part of the Young Indiana Jones series. Lots of actors and actresses that were in both. But I mean, really, we're focusing on the movies, and coming to the latest one is probably Mad Mikkelsen, who was in Rogue One as Galen Erso, and is now in Dial of Destiny as Jurgen Voller. And for me, I mean, Mads is more, in the present. He's in so many movies. I mean, really, Casino Royale, I think, was like his kind of coming out party for, well-known roles. And ever since then, it seems like he's in a bit of everything. For me, like, having just seen Dial of Destiny, that's why that one kind of comes to the forefront for me. Such a great actor, and really plays, gets into those roles, especially villains and stuff. He can really, really make those characters come to life.
Yeah, absolutely. I've met Mads a couple of times at conventions. He's a really nice guy, really down to earth.
Awesome.
What I'm going to go with is a little bit less well known is William Hutchins, who is best known for playing Jack Porkins, Red Six in Star Wars, the rebel pilot who crashed in. Oh no, he didn't crash in the Death Star. He was killed first, and then crashed in the Death Star. Refused to eject. So he appeared in Raiders of the Lost Ark as a pompous government bureaucrat, Major Eaton. Again, he was a great actor in that as well, but I should never put the two together until I'd done some research, because obviously with the fake moustache and the helmet. But so Porkins, I think he passed away not too long ago, didn't he, Porkins? Yeah. Sadly, but nice guy. But yeah, there's another one.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, he definitely, knowing the two franchise, the two series and stuff like that, Porkins gets a lot of love in the collector community and cosplay community and stuff. And he definitely made, it was a smaller role in Raiders, but definitely he made his character pop for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Another one, another smaller role, but we're looking at Admiral Ozzel, who was played by Michael Sheard in Empire Strikes Back, was also in, he was actually in Raiders of the Lost Ark as I think a background character as a Nazi U-boat captain, but he was in The Last Crusade, and he played Hitler, and he signed Indy's book, mistaking him as a fan. I just think that's hilarious, seeing him, react that way. But Michael Sheard in both franchises.
Now, lots of people in the UK will know him because we had a TV show as kids called Grange Hill, which was set in a school, very, very late 70s, early 80s. Mm-hmm. And lots of children would come home and watch Grange Hill. And he was a teacher in that show, but he was a teacher that nobody liked, incredibly strict. And, we loved it when the kids played up to him, but a wonderful actor.
That's pretty cool. Did not know that.
Yeah, so a little bit tenuous this one. So Terry Richards, who played the Wampa in The Empire Strikes Back, he has 2 credits in Indiana Jones, but one of them, an action figure was made of. He portrayed the Arab swordsman in Raiders of the Lost Ark, the guy who flashes his blade around before he's shot by Indiana Jones. So, wonderful opportunity for him, being seen on screen and having an action figure made of a minor actor. Wonderful.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And the funny note about that whole scene was that Harrison Ford and him were supposed to have this long sword fight, and Harrison Ford wasn't feeling well that day, and he convinced them that he would just shoot the swordsman for a quick, head-to-head battle, and I think it worked really well. It was a very funny scene for both of them, but yeah, it's pretty cool. Like you said, get an action figure, got to put on a Wampa costume for Empire too.
Absolutely. Now, Chris, a lot of the other actors, as you said, were in, the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles and, bit more characters, but you just want to whip through some of the more famous ones?
Yeah, the list is extensive here, but for me, really, you've got the likes of Ian McDermott, and who else we got? We got Christopher Lee, we've got Pernilla August, we've got Max von Sydow, and probably the most surprising one for me was Daniel Craig, who obviously he played an uncredited stormtrooper in The Force Awakens, but also got a role on the Young Indiana Jones series early in his career. So it's pretty cool. I kind of want to go back and watch that series. I remember watching a few episodes when I was a kid, but we didn't have access to the rest of the series. So I don't know, something worth potentially going back and seeing who can spot.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a cracking cast, and maybe one day I will check out the Indiana Jones Chronicles, but, So moving on then, Easter eggs. There were tons and tons and tons of Easter eggs, and I'm sure we can whiz through some of these. So we've got down here 20 times that the Easter eggs were planted in Indiana Jones. So I'll start with the first one. I think many of these are very well known. So the Raiders plane has the letters Obi and CPO on there. So that was, one of the very, very first Easter eggs crossover, Obi-Wan and obviously C-3PO.
Oh yeah. And then also in Raiders, there's R2-D2 and C-3PO in hieroglyphics. Blink and you'll miss it, but it's pretty funny that they included that into the background set.
That might lead into something else that I'm going to come into, but I'll keep that for later. Okay. A line that I don't like, and I really, it's starting to get overused now, but obviously Indiana Jones used hands. I've got a bad feeling about this in the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and I think that's when you're starting to really clutch at straws when you're using lines like that.
Yeah, you wonder what the writers are thinking when they want to put that in there. It's one thing to have background items as Easter eggs, but then to carry that iconic Han Solo line over to Indiana Jones, it's not the greatest. Little nod there. But then another one. This is one of the most well-known ones. It's Club Obi-Wan in the Temple of Doom. It says it blatantly right there on above the door to the club, and it's just. That's a great scene in that movie, and Club Obi-Wan, very, very fun nod.
Now, over in the Clone Wars, Dave Filoni must have been a huge Indy fan, because we've got a few crossovers here. So we have the Club Lao Chi in Bad Batch Season 2, but it's written in Urabesh, so how on earth somebody spotted that is beyond me. And the Staff of Ra also appears in the Clone Wars as well. But, there's a lot of nods in the Clone Wars, PC games and computer games over the two series.
Yeah, there's all those projects are ripe for Easter eggs. One of the other ones that we see that can be seen at Star Wars Galaxy's Edge is the Ark of the Covenant. I think that's in Doc Ondar's Den of Antiquities. Again, cool, just perfect location for items like that. And hopefully I'll get to see it in person one day.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to do that. The Holy Grail from, obviously, in Indiana Jones' Last Crusade appears in Grand Admiral Thrawn's office, but there were tons and tons of said nods in Rebels as well, so, it's hypothesized that Arinda Price was taking inspiration from Irina Spalko.
Yep.
It's possible, I suppose. A few other nods from, Cad Bane was that Indiana Jones' fedora, the Crystal Skull appearing in the Clone Wars.
Sure.
A few similarities, perhaps some of them, maybe not, but we'll give them it for now.
Right? Some of the interesting ones that I had zero idea about One of them is Indy's whip in carbonite in
No, I've
Andor.
never seen that one.
Like, just so random. But that's in Luthen's kind of shop there. Another one, he's got the Sankara stones from Temple of Doom in his shop as well, or his like back workshop. You can clearly see them up behind him, as well as some really cool, unique things, in the Star Wars universe, like holocrons and such. But I love that sort of stuff. I mean, I don't watch these shows, I'm not dissecting them. I let other people do that. And then I kind of go back and see if I can spot them and stuff. But, that sort of stuff is really cool. And then another one that I really like is in Solo. The Raiders of the Lost Ark fertility idol is in the background in Dryden Voss's ship, his office there. Again, full of all sorts of Easter eggs in that scene. But yeah, cool to see that in the background.
For everything in one location, daily news, reviews, interviews, podcasts, video, and social media feeds, bookmark FanthaTracks.com for Star Wars news 24/7, 365.
Moving on to the movies and action figures, and some of these are well known and some are not known at all. So the Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark, so this appeared in a prop store auction. Don't know what year this was. It was 2016, and yep. I was certainly not aware of this when it first appeared. And the prop store auction was for a German soldier figure from the movie. And basically it was a Luke Bespin that's been repainted and repurposed, and it was a screen used just figure lying on the ground in Raiders. I think it was towards the end of Raiders. And obviously it's got damage, it's got, it had a little bit of green tape that was used to make the cap. But when you actually see the shot from Raiders, and you can tell when you look at them, they are action figures. These are, Luke Bespin action figures lying on the ground, as the fire rages off in Raiders. Wonderful. I never spotted that before.
Oh yeah, definitely. When this kind of, this is like roughly when I was getting back into collecting, 2015, 2016. I remember this whole thing coming out, and like there was some deep dives from collectors and stuff doing some research on it. And so you go back and watch, and you're 100% right. If you focus on the background or like the wider shots and stuff, you can definitely tell they're the action figures. And it's so interesting that they went this route with repurposing the Luke Bespin figure, and obviously with the provenance and collectors, just drives up the desirability on a piece like this if it hits the open market. And just a fun little thing, their history on the Kenner Star Wars figures making an appearance in Raiders.
Now, in the behind-the-scenes footage of Raiders, it's quite blatant that they used a 12-inch large-size action figure of Han Solo in some of the shots. But I've never seen any of those appear on Prop Store. I wonder if any of those survived.
Yeah, I mean, they're either tucked away in the Lucasfilm vault, or maybe they're in some black hole collections out there. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see if those survived.
I'm sure some of them will have done, but you're right, probably black hole collections. Moving on to the action figures, and so these came out in 1982, and I was watching a wonderful video on YouTube. Sorry, I don't recall the name of the person who was doing it, but it was a guy from the UK, and he was talking about failure of the action figures and as to why it happened, and he put it down to the fact that when you collected Star Wars, you could ask 10 collectors what their first figure was, and they would probably all name 10 different figures. But that was not true of Indiana Jones. So in the first wave of figures, which came out in 82, you had the swordsman, the Cairo swordsman, you had Indiana Jones, you had Marion Ravenwood, and you had Toad. Now, if you were a child in that time, you'd want Indiana Jones, without a doubt.
I know.
And I think it was argued that the amount of it's just pretty much like Hasbro is now. You go to buy something and there's peg warmers and there's all those kind of figures out there, but nobody could get Indiana Jones because they made the same amount of that figure as they had all the other ones. And I think, that makes perfect sense as to why the line was a flop, because at the end of the day, who would want Marion, Tote, or the Cairo Swordsman without Indy?
Exactly. It's tough. Like, these days, they might have cases loaded with the main character. They didn't do that back in the day. So it definitely makes sense why, these figures, this line didn't quite succeed the way Star Wars did. I'm curious to know why, they chose, I guess, like in logic, you've got 2 good guys and 2 bad guys in the line, but like, I feel like you just needed more. You needed potentially another version of Indy in that first wave, but I don't know. I think the figures were executed well, and everything from the accessories to the sculpting and the fact that they were, had more articulation gave them a little bit of an edge. But I mean, it's just, it didn't quite connect with kids the way Star Wars did.
Absolutely not. I mean, obviously Indy was a huge movie, but the playability factor of that was probably going to be limited because you're going back to the Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid kind of theme, the Wild West, and those figures already existed, where Star Wars was a space movie, and that captured everybody's imagination. Yeah,
I mean, there was countless lines of army figures and stuff like that, whereas Star Wars, like you said, it just made your imagination run wild, and you could do all these stuff with all the spaceships and play sets and such. So it's unfortunate. At least we did get a line, so there is some pieces for collectors to hunt and stuff these days.
Yeah, so you mentioned the first 4 there, and perhaps there could have been other characters. Certainly the German soldier was what's obviously missing. But again, you're right. I mean, how many kids had G.I. Joes and Action Force? The hundreds of German soldiers that they could have borrowed. But I've had a look at the sculpts to see if there were any similarities between those and the Star Wars line. And surprisingly, there aren't too many. The major one for me is Indy himself, where he has a holster on the side that's moulded into him, and that's very reminiscent of the Han Hoth, the way the gun goes into that holster or on his belt. Yeah, the way the way the belt goes across his midsection there and down over onto his leg. Yeah, that I agree. That's probably the biggest connection. Most of the other figures, I mean, they seem pretty unique to me, especially for that era and stuff. But I think they hold up well. I think they, compared to what else was out there at that time, they fit right in line with that era, in my opinion. Yeah, it's interesting to note that, I mean, obviously Ken has branded on these, but what I liked when I looked at the card was the free Belloc mail away already from the first cards. They've took that Star Wars, success and they're trying to implement that in other lines, and it was wonderful to see, proofs of purchase, and the white mailer box with the little Belloc figure in it and some ceremonial robe. That would have been, I don't think I would have been waiting for the letterbox for that one, I'm waiting for me Belloc. I need me Belloc, It's German's perhaps a different version of Indy, yeah, possibly, but not Belloc. So Wave 2 came out then, so, what do you think of Wave 2?
Wave 2, I mean, you expand the line a little bit. It's got the Belloc figure, just in his normal archaeology clothes. Then you've got the German mechanic where Indy fights him, in front of the plane there. And also we've got Indy, but in his German soldier disguise. And then the last figure is Sala. And I think, now, you're getting, his buddy Sala, you're getting another look for Indy, you're getting another, a couple more bad guys. I think it's a little bit stronger of a wave than the first one, but I don't know. Again, still like the figures, a couple of the figures aren't like must-haves for a kid. Like I can't see too many kids wanting Belloc figure, just a guy with a white suit on.
Well, look at his accessory.
Oh yeah, I know.
Paper map. I mean, come
Awesome.
on. Is that the best they could do? We're going to package this guy with a paper map.
Yeah, just not the greatest selection there. But I mean, having Indy in a different outfit and having the German mechanic, obviously you can do the battle scene, and I think Sala was a must for that line as well. Cloth robe and the like. So I don't know. It's like I said, it's a little bit better than the first wave, but still definitely leaves some thing lacking there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there were some, accessories for this, like a Jeep, which, you'd expect, and the Raiders horse as well. But if we just skip the play sets very quickly, because these play sets are so Kenner. I mean, the Streets of Cairo is a bit weak, but the map room and the Well of Souls, I thought, they were brilliant at the play sets, those.
Yeah, and I mean, just like the accessories, the kind of playability to these play sets, I think they work. I mean, the Well of Souls, I think that's just an awesome play set. Love it. The map room, falls right in line with, the playability factor and stuff. You're right. Streets of Cairo, it's okay, but still it's just, it comes with another figure as well as the, the map room and it's just, yeah, I mean, there was potential with this movie and they could have gone further. It's just obviously back then it just wasn't as desired for young boys and girls and stuff like that. So yeah, it's too bad it didn't continue on, but yeah, I think what they put out is pretty decent for the collectors to hunt down these days.
And it's interesting to note that by the time they got the large size action figures, obviously it made perfect sense for them to take the exact mold of the Star Wars Han Solo. And as far as I'm aware, other than clothes, they painted his eyes blue, whereas the original Han had brown eyes. And I think that was possibly the only change.
I think that is it, as far as I know. And yeah, definitely. I mean, we know Hasbro loves, Hasbro Kenner trying to repurpose molds and stuff. So made a lot of sense. But yeah, I mean, this one, I don't recall ever seeing it like at a show or anything like that. Do not come across the 12-inch figures, especially boxed, very much these days.
I think it was panned for the fedora because it was just like it almost looked like a Jawa cloth cape. It was so bad.
It's not the best choice there, accessory wise.
What I also liked as well is the card backs that they had, very reminiscent of Star Wars. They very much had the collect them all vibe with the checklist on the back as well. I would be astounded if anybody actually went to the effort of collecting all these, unless they were somebody who was deeply into Raiders and wanted to actually collect them as opposed to play with them. Yeah.
I mean, the only piece of vintage Indy, merch that I have is a card back for Indy from Raiders. That's the only piece that I have. That's enough representation for me. But it's just, I mean, I guess if you grew up and this line hit you at the right time and, you've got the nostalgia to complete the line, I mean, all the power to you. It's plenty doable because it's pretty, it's pretty small in comparison to, say, Star Wars, but I'm sure there's like all sorts of variations and foreign stuff. I don't know what's out there for, foreign variants and stuff, but I don't know. It's visually, I think the packaging looks great. It definitely pops, but yeah, it's just not something that's, calling me to complete the line.
No. Right then, so leaving the toy line alone aside, another crossover between Indiana Jones and Star Wars is, I mean, were you aware that Indiana Jones actually appeared in a Star Wars story?
I was not. This was news to me when you shared the article. But yeah, go ahead. Tell us about it.
Yeah, well, I think I learned of this maybe about 4 years ago. It was one of the Star Wars tales, I think it was. You know, those nonsense stories, such as like R5D4 was a Jedi, you know, that kind of thing. So I knew the story had come out, and the general gist of it is that Han and Chewie land the Falcon on some primitive planet, and Han Solo's attacked, and I think he's there's either poison on the arrow blades or something that pierces his skin, and he knows he's dying. So he asks Chewbacca to take him back to the Millennium Falcon because he wants to die on the Falcon. And about 200, 300 years later, whatever it was, Indiana Jones actually arrives and discovers this ship and discovers Han Solo, and he has his sidekick Shorty with him as well. And he gets this tingling that he kind of is a little bit familiar with the skeleton. So they decide to leave it untouched, and they head off for another Indiana Jones adventure. So a very, very odd story.
Oh, yeah. And then Chewbacca is essentially Sasquatch.
Pretty much, yes.
Yeah, because he's off on the run, you know.
Yeah. And obviously the primitive planet then turns up to being Earth, obviously. You know, so yeah, interesting story, but one that definitely needs to stay in the non-canon line.
Oh, definitely. I mean, it's fun to do stuff like that, but it's not. If that was made canon, you know,
can you imagine him appearing in Ahsoka or Acolyte or something like that?
Yeah, right. Too funny.
Fantha Tracks. Hoodoo!
The first time I became aware of the Indiana Jones figures was from the retro collection. So modern's very much not my thing on Indiana Jones, and I have never seen these appear anywhere other than Forbidden Planet. It's the only place I've seen them, and they look nice, but you know, they're not for me. Yeah,
same. I mean, I've come across some of them, you know, Target, and some of the, you know, people have them at shows and stuff. The Hasbro Kenner retro collection. I mean, they look like they were done well. Very, you know, similar to the Star Wars retro collection. Great for, you know, collectors to kind of relive that experience they might have had as a kid, you know, picking them up off the pegs. But, you know, for me, it doesn't call for me to buy them, just like the vintage stuff. But yeah, I mean, a lot of them are peg warmers now. A lot of them have been clearanced out. I mean, we got the 6-inch line with the Indiana Jones series for the Dial of Destiny. And then they had some figures that represented Indy from, you know, the earlier movies. Again, like, done really well. Just like the Black Series these days, quality is there. The sculpting, the likenesses for a main figure line, I think they did a great job. So it's great to have that option for collectors. Unfortunately, I mean, I don't think we're going to be seeing any more Indiana Jones figures coming out after these ones, you know, kind of leave store shelves. I think Disney and Lucasfilm and Hasbro have probably shelved any Indiana Jones figures, you know, for as a long-term release, in my opinion.
Do you think they overstepped on this one? Because, you know, the Star Wars line was coming out, and then there's massive delays, and then another wave, and then you can't find things.
Yeah.
And then these Indiana Jones figures appeared that nobody particularly asked for. Nobody seemed to want them. There weren't people talking about nostalgia other than a much smaller subset. Whereas things like, you know, the Master of the Universe line, that didn't really take off either, as far as I'm aware. You know, because Master of the Universe was equally huge. And, you know, this just seems such a strange thing. They could have got another dozen Star Wars figures out that probably would have been picked up by collectors.
Yeah, I mean, this could be a whole other conversation, is the choices that Hasbro's made in, like, where they put the resources. Like, recently they've come out saying that they're going to shelve some other lines for the foreseeable future just because they haven't been successful. Most of them hit clearance. So I don't know if it's a whole, like, thing going on with collectors, but and the pricing is a big thing too. Definitely some things to consider for Hasbro. But yeah, I think they might have, like you said, overstepped or thought that the collectors would be there, clamoring for this stuff. But they're not really.
Other than the retro collection, what else is there for Indiana Jones that's a more modern?
Yeah, so being part of the 6 scale community, we talked about it a couple episodes ago on 6 scale scavengers, there is going to be a Hot Toys figure coming out for Indy for the Dial of Destiny. And it looks amazing. There's a regular release. There's a deluxe. Likeness is unbelievable to Harrison Ford, all kinds of accessories. But Hot Toys, 99% of the time they knock it out of the park with the sculpting, the fit and finish, the accessories and stuff. But sometimes it's the decision making kind of, falls in line with where Hasbro's putting their efforts. Most collectors were like, I'd rather just have them make a figure from Indy from Raiders of the Lost Ark, instead of making one from Dial of Destiny, older Harrison Ford. It's just like they probably would have been better served redoing younger Indiana Jones from, one of the first 3 movies instead of doing something from the latest without even knowing how it was gonna perform it in the theaters, which hasn't been very well. But yeah, I mean, it's cool to see them putting out an Indy figure because Hot Toys mostly puts out Star Wars and Marvel and DC and the like. But it's cool to see. But again, is that the representation you want in your collection from Indiana Jones? Is a Dial of Destiny Indy, or would you rather have something from Raiders, Temple of Doom, or Last Crusade?
They already had a Raiders Indy though, didn't they?
Yeah. I mean, it came out quite a while ago. It was in their DX series. Great figure, just hard to come by these days. And those had issues long term with the pleather and the jacket and stuff would start to deteriorate. So that's why people wanted them to redo that figure or come out with another version of that figure.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's any kind of contract written in for Harrison whereby any new merchandising he gets a percentage of, but he didn't have a percentage of Raiders and things like that. And I wonder if that's where some of these strange decisions are coming from.
I think there might be something there because one of the biggest figures in Hot Toys in 6 scale that people really want is a Bespin Han Solo. And for some reason, Hot Toys just won't make it. And even Return of the Jedi Endor Han, they just won't make it. But they've made a Force Awakens Han Solo. And now they're making this Indy from the latest movie. So, yeah, I think there's definitely something to that. There's rumors from people that might have connections that might be the case. It's kind of unfortunate for collectors, but that's where we are these days with some of these big actors and their contracts.
Come on, Harrison, how much more money do you want? I didn't even think that would be remotely plausible. What you've said there makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Yep.
Who would have thought that we'd be able to fill nigh on an hour with a crossover between Star Wars and Indiana Jones? When I said to my wife, I'm recording today, she does her usual, what you talking about this time? And I says, Star Wars and Indiana Jones. And she looked at me and said, you do know that they're 2 different things, don't you? And I was just like, yes, but we're talking about the crossovers between them. And she went, well, that should be done in 5 minutes, won't it?
Right.
And she rolled her eyes.
No, we figured out a way to extend it out longer than that.
Well, I really hope our listeners got something out of this. And, I certainly, when I was doing my research, I thought, wow, I didn't know that. And, who would have thought that Anthony Daniels and Ian McDiarmid and Christopher Lee and people like that had crossover, even if it was small bit part acting in some of the Chronicles. It's just, you'd expect the crew. I mean, thank God we didn't go down that route because we're still doing it now.
Yeah, we don't need to go down that rabbit hole.
But there's obviously going to be using the same teams, the same cameramen, the same stuntmen. Just goes on and on. But what we've got here is we've got the love of two incredibly great friends, Steven Spielberg and George Lucas, and they've just got together to just do their own thing. And I think as much as I don't really have a fondness for Raiders and I don't have a fondness for Temple of Doom, I do have an appreciation for what these two guys have done. It's another $1 billion franchise, and they've knocked it out of the park in that it's a bit like Star Wars. There's movies there for everybody, and you don't have to be a fan of a lot of it.
Absolutely. I mean, they came together, created another, classic franchise in movie history. And yeah, like you said, there's a little bit of something for everybody in there. It's going to live on for a long time.
Well, Chris, I think it's time to end the show now. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you as always, and I look forward to catching you on the next one after I have been on my holiday in Thailand.
Awesome, man. Can't wait. Have fun, and we'll catch up later on this summer.
So thanks for listening to Collecting Tracks. If you want to be part of the action, stay updated on all the latest Star Wars news, visit fanthatracks.com or check out the free Fantha Tracks app through the App Store to follow us on your mobile device. You can reach out to us and send in your listeners' questions by emailing radio@fanthatracks.com. Comment, like and share on any of our social media feeds at Fantha Tracks, and be sure to subscribe, leave a review, preferably a 5-star one, on Amazon Music, Audible, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcatcher or smart speaker of choice. And as always, thanks to James Semple for composing the Fantha Tracks intro, Andy Lythe for our Collecting Tracks open music, and Mark Daniel and Vanessa Marshall for our voiceovers. Remember to tune in to Good Morning Tatooine, live Sunday evenings at 9 p.m. UK time, 4 p.m. Eastern and 1 p.m. Pacific on Facebook and YouTube. Check out Fantha Tracks Radio Friday evenings at 7 p.m. UK time for new episodes of The Fantha from Down Under, Planet Leia, Desert Planet Discs, Start Your Engines, Collecting Tracks and Cannon Fodder, and every Tuesday at 7 p.m. UK time for your weekly episode of Making Tracks.
Coming up next on Fantha Tracks Radio, it's Making Tracks.